Welcome back, everybody. This is the the next segment in the 2.5 liter engine rebuild. We got the engine back to the shop. Well, first of all, the customer called me and requested that I come to his house with my hoist and pull the engine out of his truck. He said that he was going to pay for that, although he hasn't. So when I got there to pick up this engine, the engine was not out of the vehicle. There was, they had a lot of stuff unhooked, but they also had quite a few bolts and lines and stuff that had to be taken off. So that's my time, of course. And then there's loading and transporting. We got the engine back to the shop, like you saw in the previous videos, and we disassembled it and did an inspection on it. We basically came up to the conclusion that everything inside the motor was junk, and the only thing we could save was the block. Okay, so all those parts are junk. I wrote up an estimate for the customer, parts and labor, came out to around $1,400. Well, $1,400, that seems like a lot of money for a little 4-cylinder short block, but keep in mind, that's parts, labor. We need a new crank and rods. We got a lot of new parts when we're doing all the machine work. So I called the customer and he basically told me, well, I can't afford that. I don't have the money for that. I'm like, okay. He says, you know what, I'll just, I even suggested that we find another short block that had a good crank and some rods, and we could overhaul that or rebuild that and be a lot less money. But he says, no, I'll just pick up all that junk. No problem, I'll just pick it up. And I said, okay. And I knew what was going through his mind here. Okay, the fact that he said, I will pick up that junk, gave it away. So I made sure that I told him before I hung up, I said, okay, that's fine. Let me know when you want to pick it up. You have a bill here of about $80. And what I got on the other end of the phone was silence. A lot of customers don't understand that when you take your engine to a machine shop, or in this case you have a machine shop pick up your engine, transmission, you're doing repair on your vehicle and somebody's doing an estimate, they're investigating to try to find out what happened to it, you got to remember you're paying for time. You're not simply just paying to get the job done. If I'm diagnosing and doing an estimate, which is typically what you'll do with an engine, because a lot of times with an engine, you don't know what's going on inside until you actually get it apart and lay all the parts out and clean everything and diagnose it. So he says, oh, wow, $80, huh? Well, and in his mind, he's thinking, well, you didn't really do anything. Well, hold on. I drove all the way out to your house in my vehicle with my hoist, and I pulled your engine out of your truck and then loaded it up and took it back and then unloaded it and then disassembled it and completely inspected it. How is it that you think I didn't do anything to your engine? But that's the misconception that a lot of consumers and customers have, is that if you don't actually fix their car or their engine, that you really haven't done anything. Well, it's important that you explain to your customers, and it's also important that consumers understand that we sell time. Automotive repair shops, we sell time. It's like if you went to a lawyer's office. Okay? Now I know they give free consultations, and some shops say, oh, free estimates, right? Okay. But generally the free estimate thing is something they can do fairly quickly, and they don't have a lot of time and money into it, and they're hoping that they're going to actually get the job. Now, had this customer said, okay, $1,400, well, it's kind of steep, but I got to have my truck, let's go ahead and do it. The time that I've invested into this, including picking the engine up, would be rolled into that $1,400. I wouldn't charge him for that on top of the $1,400. I just figure that's part of the deal. But if he's going to come back and now pick up his junk and just think that he's going to, not going to compensate me for the 3.5 hours, and I'm only charging him actually for an hour's worth of time. I charge about $80 an hour, which is actually less than a lot of shops. Some of the dealerships are charging $125 an hour these days. That's not going to happen. Now, fortunately, in this situation, the clutch and pressure plate and flywheel and so forth and the motor mounts and so forth was still left on the engine, and he's going to need that stuff. That's going to be way more than $80 to replace that stuff. And so what typically will happen if we just had the engine and we told him, you know, everything's junk, you owe $80, you owe $100, whatever you owe, many of these customers, they just don't come back and pick up their engine. Unfortunately, in this situation with this customer, I have some pretty expensive and critical parts that he's going to need to put this thing back together that he actually left bolted to the engine. So that's kind of the way it works out. I mean, it's unfortunate that we weren't able to complete this series because, well, the customer's backed out of the deal. So we're not going to be completing it. But the videos are interesting anyway, at least from the standpoint of being able to see something that had a catastrophic failure. Something that, you know, and kind of what it takes to take it apart and inspect it and so forth, and the process of dealing with the customer and the process of doing an estimate. And so we'll see what happens. Eventually he's probably going to have to come pick it up when he wants his clutch and so forth. Most shops will, most machine shops anyway, are only obligated to hold those parts for 90 days. And at that point then they can be sold for or scrapped out or whatever. We are not a storage facility. We do not have room to indefinitely store engines that people have decided not to pick up. And so, because we're limited on space, 90 days, if it gets thrown out, it gets thrown out. And we will make every attempt to call the customer and let them know, several attempts actually, to let them know, look, you need to pick this up or we're going to have to discard it. We don't have room for it. So, it's kind of an interesting situation, and unfortunate, because we were hoping that we could do the series, but hey, this is what happens. This is life. You know, I could have just deleted all these videos and say, well, that didn't work out. But, you know, I think it's a good information, because if you're going to rebuild engines or going to do work on cars, you're going to run into this situation. Your customers are going to be very indignant when you try to charge them for their time, in some cases, if you haven't actually solved their problem, because they don't want to pay for the problem being solved. So hopefully that makes sense. And we've got a 460. This is coming up. Now there is a video that we did where we were milling the block on this engine that I'm talking about now, but we've got a 460 engine that we are putting a stroker kit in, and this has been a long-term project, and a lot of it's due to my own procrastination. And I really haven't been as diligent as I should have on it, and you know, I feel kind of bad about that for this customer. So we're going to get on that real soon. I've already got a video. There's one where we're milling the block and we're setting it up. It's an engine for Dustin. I do have some work done on the heads, and so watch for the 460 stroker. It's going to be over 500 cubic inches. And we are definitely going to do a series on that coming up real soon. So go ahead and subscribe below. My Vintage Iron 7512. Thanks for watching. Sorry it didn't work out with the 2.5, but maybe we'll get her next time. And as always, thanks for watching.